there, guys, and welcome to top 10 tips if you're going to a 40k tournament, as presented by me, Mr. Ed Watts. So, today I'm going to be covering effectively just some tips for the, newcomers. So, you're going to have some people who turn up to a 40k tournament for the first time. It's going to be daunting. You're going to think there's a million things you have to do. This is just a general guide to get you started. So, without further ado, let's carry on. So, first of all, be organized. Now, there's going to be people that watch this and know me and know that it's going to be very rich coming from me, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to the advice. So, first of all, remember your tape measure, dice, any relevant books. So you've got you've got your core rule book and your codexes and stuff like that. These are all useful things to have here. The wound markers are a nice touch. You can use dice, or they do wound markers that like roll down, which a lot of people use, which are very, very cool. And have a think about squad markings. Some tournament packs actually require it. I think you should always squad mark your dudes. If you've got especially if you've got a horde 100 dudes into different squads, you can do this with base rims, little bands with different colors or different labels on the shoulder pads and all that sort of good stuff. Also have a nice safe way to transport your army between tables. So, for example, a trolley. A friend of mine uses a trolley and it works quite well, and something along those lines. So, something that you can just transport your model safely from one table to the other, and make sure that you can, take it, move it safely without anything breaking. And keep a tidy dice rolling area. Now, just so that you don't lose any and dice aren't everywhere and that sort of thing. Now, this is one of my struggles. I do try and do this. I try and self, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of try to improve on it, but I am a messy dice person. But it's a good thing to always pick them up, put them next to a tray again, and try to make sure that you are leaving the area tidy so that your opponent knows more. Your opponent sees it's tidy as well. So, read the tourney pack. A lot of people don't do this. As a tournament organizer, I've released tournament packs before where people ask questions that is actually in the tournament pack itself. However, I would always recommend read the tourney pack. This is like the source of information. If you're going to your first tournament, you have the source of information there for you. This is very important for you to read. So the tournament pack it'll include information such as round times, when lunch is, prizes, when to put out armies for best painted, all that sort of good stuff. So you really want to make sure you sort of read and take that in, because this is it's also something that the TO has put together for you, so you have an easier time at the event. So you might as well read it, right? And also it'll tell you sometimes like the parking situation. For parking's a struggle, and there's other car parks that you may need to go to. It'll tell you where those are and all that sort of thing. So it's always a good thing to have a read. Also, if there's food, there'll be a menu there. Like whenever I run my Card of Carnage events, whatever menu we're using at the time will be on the tourney pack as well. And any FAQs that could be in place. This will obviously affect your gameplay. This is UKTC, WTC. So some examples of that might be the fact that the 1-inch invisible wall wouldn't be there. So basically, for really new people watching this, you can stay an inch away from the wall and not get charged in UKTC. In WTC, you can't do that because they can just charge through because it becomes like a 2-inch engagement range. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind as well. Make sure you look at your FAQs, make sure you know what you're playing. And also scoring system. So, for example, Glasshammer GT, the one I went to recently, did a 20 scoring system, which will be in the tournament pack as well. And that's that, and whether they're doing that or points like the UKTC events, how they're doing placings, whether it's battle points, path to victory, all that sort of thing, it'll all be there. And how a top cut goes, like it might just be the top 4 players going for the final, or it might be like an LGT situation, which is the London Grand Tournament. Where everyone who goes 5-0 can have a chance to win. There might be shadow rounds where some people just don't have to play for the first rounds 6, 7, and 8, or however many it is. But yeah, it's always good to read it just so you know how those things work. And then next, look at the terrain pack. So always important to read through the terrain pack. This will show how dense or light boards are, and you'll effectively have to plan for this in the list strike stage. So it's always good information to have, because sometimes you'll have quite a light board, so you might have to look at having to have more durable units that can sit on objectives for longer, or it might be quite a dense board, so you can run more like a combat-y, stagey units and all that sort of thing. And sometimes there'll be also it basically terrain will dictate what sort of list you will take. And having reading the terrain, looking at the terrain pack first, have a feel for that, knowing where you can hide stuff, knowing where the lines could be, and all that sort of thing. It's just useful information before you go to a tournament. Also, sometimes there's a large gap, like perfectly placed at the back of the board behind your BL, that's like about 13.5 inches away from the corner of the L. So if you want to put a unit there, it could get shot. So sometimes those situations is really good to just have a lone up, like a little lieutenant with combi weapon or a callous assassin. And those sort of considerations you can look at if you're reading the terrain pack. So yeah, that's the terrain pack. All good information. Read about the missions you're playing. This will probably be in the tournament pack as well, but it's very important to read upon these and see what your special abilities, tertiary bits are as well. So the main reason you do this is because the additional rules, like in missions such as swift action and like rapid escalation and raised banners and all that sort of thing. These are good to understand how they work and how they interact with the game, and be prepared for, because some of these, like, you might find a lot of these have lots of benefits for battle line. So you might have like 3 raised banners missions or something. Not sure why you would, but let's say there is 3 raised banners missions in the mission you go in the tournament you're going to. You may consider taking more battle line, so you can do that a little bit more effectively. So that's something to consider. The missions you're playing will also influence the little list you want to run. Again, it'll just sort of if you find it's relatively balanced throughout the game, you probably find that you're going to be wanting to run a relatively balanced list. However, if it's more designed towards battle line and like a horde sort of thing, you might want to try and take some more of those units. And understanding how to score prime in each mission before you go to a tourney is always helpful, which is 100% true. You don't want to be surprised halfway through round 2, let's say, and you're like, oh, we're playing supply drop. I didn't know that the home objective didn't score primary, or something along those lines. Especially if a new player is playing, these sort of things can catch you out. Obviously, not from your opponent, just because you don't know. So it's always good to take a bit of time to read through these things and get yourself a little bit more prepared. Next, to think about your list whilst carrying a cup of tea with your foot. I only just noticed that. That's pretty cool, right? So now you've read the tourney pack and the terrain pack. So that's a lot of impactful information that's going to dictate or contribute towards the sort of list you're going to want to run. Your list is going to be an army. Also, your list has to be an army that you like. So with units that you like. So no matter what I say here, there might be units that are certainly better for the job than others, but it's 100% down to like, what sort of list you're going to enjoy and what sort of list you're going to want to run. But again, both important parts of the game, and to make sure you enjoy your weekend, because you're going to be playing 3 to 5 games with this, maybe more if there's a final cut somewhere and you do amazingly at your first tournament. Just make sure it's a list that you're going to enjoy, you're going to find engaging, you're not going to get bored of, and all those good things. So with the information that you get from the terrain pack and the tourney pack, I did go into some examples as to where you might want to consider certain units for the missions or the terrain or anything like that. So this is the point where you want to think about it. If you're going to go really hard and you want to do really well, you could just take some notes of the missions and have a look at the list and sort of decide what you think may or may not work on the missions that you're playing. Also, if you want to do as well as you can, so what some people call this is meta lists. So people just copy meta lists and they just take them to a tournament, which there's nothing wrong with. There are builds out there that are very powerful, which are very powerful, very good, and will put you in a very strong position, which will give you advantage over certain other lists. But if you want to do that, then consider looking up other people's army lists. So other people's lists that may have done well. So, for example, right now, Sisters, there's Jack Ty, who's just done really, really well with them, and another couple of people who've done really, really well with them as well. So, if you wanted to look at their lists to see how they are good and how they work and all that sort of thing, that's a good thing to look up. So, yeah, that's the main thing with that list. But again, main crux of it is take a list you're going to enjoy. Play sportingly. This is a point that's very close to my heart here. So play nice, because this is ultimately a game of toy soldiers. So play by intent, clear with your opponent, explain your rules to your opponent at the start of the game and all that sort of stuff. Now, by that I mean you may have. I'm going to use the Grey Knights detachment as an example. So what you may find is there's a few examples there of potential gotcha strats. So this may be like a strat that you may not see coming. Use it against your opponent, And if you haven't told them what it does, they may think they're a bit hard done by because they didn't know what it was going to do and you used it. So to avoid these situations, I try to go through everything my list does at the start of the game. So including strats, little abilities that units can do, all that sort of thing. And and that's by doing that, your opponent has all the information available to them, and most of the time those players will ask questions throughout, like, oh, which one is the sigil of exigence unit that when I shoot it, it moves? You point it out, and all that good stuff. How far you go with this is down to play style, but no one likes to play against someone who isn't fun to play on the table, which is true. Like I may go a little bit like too far in some aspects when I'm playing in game, in singles anyway. Singles for me is it just affects me, so I don't mind. But in like teams playing and stuff like that, it may be more of an expectation that you play a little bit more tighter, just a little bit tighter, just to make sure that you're not giving too much away. Because obviously at that point, it's affecting 4 people who are on your team, which will affect your result. Obviously, still play nice, but you can do it in a way that your opponent doesn't feel like you're doing hard to battle. You still need to tell them all the information and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's down to how far you want to go with that. Like some people pre-warn about Overwatch. Some people, will move out in front and they'll just roll it. But that's down to you. Personally, I play by intent. So warn people about gotcha strats or even Overwatch if people don't know how potent it is. I mean, if someone's got shot by an Overwatch and they walk into the exact same Overwatch again in the next turn, I'm going to use the Overwatch because they've been shot by it already, so they already know what it does. But it's just to make sure that your opponent is so you and your opponent both understand what's going on. And you'll meet some awesome people in this hobby. I'm playing the game properly. I'm playing it not just by intent, but like just playing it in a way that you can both enjoy the game. Will also make you improve as a player, and also you get to know a lot more people because more people want to chat to you. You'll chat to more people on Discord and all that sort of thing. And also all the top players play like it. Like you'll find that the top players are the most chill people to play because they're not going to be sat here gotcha chatting you. Like if they haven't told you about something that they've forgotten to mention to you, they'll probably apologize and just be like, oh, sorry, I didn't tell you that. No problem, it's all good. Then you can then take back whatever you've just done that will affect you. So you find that the top players are the chillest ones. So I'd recommend playing the same. And next, the clock, the chess clock, the infamous chess clock. For new people, this can be a daunting prospect. However, it is a staple of the top end of competitive play. It's used in most final cuts, and it is used to ensure that the game is finished in a timely manner. This includes WTC, so the World Championships, they all use it. Now, a lot of people use clock, and it's basically going back and forth. And at the start, when you first use a clock, it's going to be, you might struggle to click the clock sometimes and that sort of thing. But just try your best. And also, if you're going to be in situations where you're going to be playing with the clock a lot, like in tournaments, then use it in practice games because it's always a good way. If you're using it in practice games, you're more prepared for it when you use it in tournaments. Also, big thing here: ensure to establish how the clock is to be used throughout the game. So, or at the end, or throughout your game. So, try to understand if someone is using the death clock rules, which is effectively if you hit zero on your times, you can't score primary or secondaries apart from if it's just passively. So if you just stood on circles or if you've got fixed secondaries, as if they're death clocking you, you need to be aware of that. So because so that they don't use your time to ask questions or to ask too many questions or that sort of thing. Like if I ask questions, I try to put up my time about their army because I'm trying to find out stuff about them. But if they're death clocking you, you need to follow the rules of the clock a bit more strictly, and a bit less loose. But if you don't know you're playing by the death clock rules, and then someone death clocks you, or is going to death clock you, it can leave a very sour taste in your mouth. And you don't want that. Everyone wants to have a good game and have a fun game. So you just want to make sure that that's avoided. So establish this at the start of the game if you're on the clock, especially if you're going to death clock someone. By the way, guys, if you're going to death clock someone and you're planning to play by those rules and you're planning to play that way, tell your opponent very clearly. Tell your opponent because you want to avoid any misunderstandings. I find most players are cool on the clock. Like I play on the clock at the top end, and even if you run out, even if someone I play against runs out of time, I'm happy for them to use my time so we can get an end result. Unless they're like clocking out on like turn 2 and like I've got like 30 minutes left or whatever, but very rare that happens. So yeah, that's the clock. Get the reps in. Look at Rocky lifting up his weights as some inspiration. Practice, practice, practice. Knowing your army will help you out a lot if you go to a tournament. You'll be quicker, be more knowledgeable about your rules and interactions, etc. So this is very important. Knowing your army is a very important aspect of the game. It'll make you, as I say, it'll make you quicker and more knowledgeable. And it's just, getting practicing on either TTS or in person with some friends or anything along those lines is always a great thing to do. Also, knowing how your army works and its game plan, then you can focus on how your opponent's army works and worry about them more than worrying about your own rules, which is a very important aspect. Like, especially when I first started learning the game, I found that if I knew my army a lot more, I could focus on like my opponent's army and find out how that worked and how that interacted with each other and sort of what damage he does and all that sort of thing. Whilst I'm trying to focus, whilst I can just like know what I do, and you learn a lot more that way. Also, 40k is fun, and more practice is fun, and a TTS tool. The TTS is a fantastic tool to practice with. Also, be curious, ask questions. Be cautious of asking too many questions on your opponent's time or anything like that, because that can be like annoying sometimes. But if like when I first started, if I was on the clock, I'd put it on my time. I'd ask some questions about. I'd ask some questions about, say, for instance, threat ranges or anything along those lines. And it's really important to do those things to make sure that you understand how those armies interact and work. Checking lines of sight on your unit as well to ensure the unit can't draw line of sight. So if you want to hide it, is also a good question to ask. Talk to your opponent about this sort of thing. Work it out with your opponents. Both of you are happy with what you are intending. Again, this all comes down to intent and making sure that both you and your opponent are happy with what's going on. Again, very important aspects of the game, especially in the top level competitive play, because you never want to be, you never want to be going against what someone's trying to do, unless it's impossible. Then just tell them, and that's just how that sort of thing works. So ask questions. It's also a great way to understand arms that you haven't played before. And mainly, number 10, which is the biggest rule, which is basically the biggest thing here, is have fun. Like, it's a great hobby. You're going to meet some fantastic people, see some fantastic models. Um, you have some fantastic games. You'll have some amazing moments where things blow up and destroy other things. You'll have some other amazing moments where you might go to a narrative event and you get some of the best stories that you're going to have for a while. And, this is a great hobby. Got a lot of love for it. Been in it for a long time. And don't think that the tournament scene is as intimidating as some people may think it might be. So, yeah, if you go into your first tournament, guys, enjoy. And I hope that these tips can help you out here. And yeah, I'll be making some more videos in future, guys. I'm looking forward to getting them out as well. And yeah, like, subscribe, all that good sort of stuff. And thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.